Hello and welcome back to another Bitwig tutorial. I'm recording today's video outside in the garden next to the ponies, underneath the blossom and the deep blue sky of spring in West Sussex. I'm going to be showing you today a little trick you can do on audio files with the Preview Onsets button, and following on in many ways from yesterday's lesson in creating microhouse with the textures mode on sampler, I'm going to show you another way to take at first unlikable, unusable shit loops and create something a little cooler. So I have, let's just get rid of this for now. I found a couple of loops that I'm going to use in this example. This one, for example, just seems perfect really, because it has a lot of the characteristics of something I would want to use, but there's just a bit too much extra. So this is just in the context with a kick. Hat loop. Okay, make this red. Okay, when we click on an audio file, we're presented with the option to change the mode, the stretching mode, if you will. By default, it is on stretch. You can change this in your preferences, but I think stretch is quite a cool mode for long audio samples by default, because I often tend to do this little trick. If you click the speaker icon on the right hand side of the transients menu, listen to what happens. Microhouse. Very cool. Okay, so what is happening here? What is happening is that any time that Bitwig has detected an onset, or a transient, should we say, it's letting through a tiny burst of sound. It's removing the tail, and in many ways it's just keeping that first transient. I think because it's called the preview onsets, it's something which you would usually use to see if your onsets are right, you know. But this is actually quite a cool technique for taking source material and just instantly, in many ways, gating it, but with just no effort. So let's have a look here. So on the second section of this, we have grain size. If we play through, you'll notice that by default we're on normal. If I go to the right, we have a large grain size, which will make those grains longer. Quite cool. I tend to use it on this one, which is small. So what this will do is this will make each time a transient or an onset that has been detected plays through along the timeline, it will give that as a burst, a very short burst of sound. And again, let's just turn off the speaker so we can hear what the original sound was. I mean, it's aight, but as soon as you click this, oh, you got a vibe going on. I like that. Okay. So, just below the transient section, we have something called rate. And rate is currently set to at onsets. What this means is the fact that the preview onsets button is letting through a burst or a little transient grain every time that an onset comes up as it plays through the sound. If we take that rate at onsets, we see that we have below four other options: 30-seconds notes, 16th notes, eighths, and quarter notes. I'm now just going to zoom out of here, and I'm going to show you what happens of this same loop if I set this to quarter notes. And very well done if you've guessed it. This is only really going to let through the transients every time the kick is playing as well. Not too useful in this sense. So why don't we try eighth notes? And again, you may have guessed it, this is going to let through offbeat hats as well. Listen to the sound of the microhouse. Turn off the speaker again so we can compare it to the original sound. And single click. Ooh. Cool, love it. That is just brilliant. If we put it to 16th notes, we're going to have something a little different than at onsets, because despite the fact that there are no 30-second notes here, we only have quarter, eighth, and 16th notes. We've got a 16th there. We've got an eighth there, we've got a quarter, we've got a quarter. There are no 30-second notes here, and who really uses 30-second notes anyway? Please let me know if you do, because I've never found a use for them. What we have is, if we set this to eighth notes, we're having both where the kick is and the offbeat hat. If I set this to 16th notes, something a little different happens with this source material. Now, bearing in mind that there isn't a 16th note happening here, if I turn this off, why do we have another note happening here? Well, I suppose because there is a tail to this sound, this gate burst is creating a second hat in between this gap, because it's saying that every 16th note it's going to let through a small grain of the sound. So this tail is becoming another hat. I personally don't really like this sound, but what can be quite interesting is if you take the clip, let's put this back to eighth notes. Very cool. Why don't we chop here, and here, and here, and here, and here, and here, and you guessed it, here. And we don't need to chop there because it's the end. I'm just going to highlight these guys, and I'm going to change their rates to 16ths. Let's see what that's done. That's quite cool. So, what that has done is it's let through, for this amount of the clip, just eighth notes. And through there, despite there being only 2 notes, it's created 4 notes. Again, let's listen to what the original source material was. Ah, brilliant. Okay, I'm just going to leave that there right now. Although, actually, one other thing. Notice here how this note probably isn't getting picked up. Why is that? Because that isn't an 8th note. That's a 16th note. If I were to put that section to 16th notes, what would happen is that it would pick up here, because that is the 16th note. This is swung. That is, in many ways, an outlier in the detection of the fixed intervals here. So what I could do on these sections is I could set just that bit, and let's find another swung piece. That looks to me to be swung. Sorry, the beer doesn't always go down so well. I'm going to chop that guy there, and hey presto, we've got another guy there. I'm going to highlight all of these swung ones, and I'm going to set those to, you guessed it, at onsets. Now listen to what happens. We basically have 8th note transients being picked up at onset, therefore picking up the swung note, 8th notes, and then we have at the end of the bars the 16th note chops. So let's see what happens there now. Quite cool. So I find when working with audio that I like to be able to hear what I'm seeing and see what I'm hearing. So this to me doesn't necessarily look like what I'm hearing, especially those 16th notes at the end of the bar. I don't see them, therefore why am I hearing them? So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to bounce in place this clip. Now look at that. We've got something a little more representative of what we're hearing. Cool. Okay, so that's one way that you can use some of those little onset previews. Why don't we bring in another pattern now? Let's see what this guy is. I mean, it sounds pretty cool. But again, I can't just find it in myself to just use that loop as it is. So I'm just going to mute that hat for a sec. And let's see by default what happens if we bring this to small grain size at onsets. Quite cool, to be honest. But I want to do something a little different with this guy. So let's turn this off. And let's see. Maybe I don't want that first kick. Maybe I want my kick to cut through. Maybe I don't want that kick, even though there may be a clap. Maybe I don't want that kick. Get rid of that. I don't want that kick. Let's use the eraser tool. I was trying to use these more. Which one should I use? Should I use the knife tool, the eraser, the time selection? Okay. So let's have a look what we've got here with the preview onsets off. I mean, it works. It's cool. I'm into it. But why don't we try now, maybe just gating this to 16th note onsets. Also notice here that on transients modes, we have transient preservation off, soft, and hard. The difference between soft and hard, the difference between soft and hard is that hard will seem to have more of a transient and a quicker cutoff. I tend to go for this more often than not. So let's see what happens now. If I were to put this to onsets, it's not too different from that 16th note, but what that's doing is it's giving us another transient here. Just because even though... Oh, we can hear the church bells in the background. Let's take a moment. Literally, just as I stop the music. Okay, so if we put it on at onsets, each of these little blue triangles will give us a burst, a little grain. Notice that there isn't an onset there, but I could add one. If I go down to onsets here, it will snap. But if I press shift when I hold it here, I can go wherever I want. I'm going to add an onset there. See if there's any others. How dare you, Bitwig, not find an onset. Okay, let's do one there as well. Okay, that'll do. I mean, it was a little off there. Again, shift to drag things. It's the same in a lot of software. So let's see, at onsets, what have we got here? It's cool. But this note again here, we're only getting one bleep of sound. If I put this to 16th notes, we're going to get a second burst here, just the same as if I were to add another onset. And either way, it's up to you how you do it. But, you know, depending on the mode, 16th can sometimes give you a bit more of a grooving rhythm, a bit more rolling. That's like a dug-a-dug there. Dug-a-dug. And if I put this to onset. So, I mean, it really is up to you. The world is your oyster. Let's call this perk loop. Get rid of the name. Make it red. Okay, so we've got a nice little pattern there, and you've guessed it. I'm just going to consolidate that, get rid of the name. So now I can see what I hear and hear what I see. Something which I find as well with these hat loops is having a hat on the kick in many ways does seem to remove the groove. So I'm just going to get rid of all of these guys. I don't want any quarter notes in the hats, really. Hats ain't for quarter notes. Remove those guys. Sounds like a plane is landing or something behind. God, these headphones are really uncomfortable. If any of you work at Pioneer, you must let them know. I'm just going to remove those quarter notes. So now what I've ended up with... Let's use the eraser tool again. Why not? That's what it's there for. Boom. I do like the eraser tool. I don't know if this exists in many software. Okay, cool. So let's see what we've got here. Okay, that sounds a lot better. I don't know if that's a sub in the track. Oh, it's just the wind on the microphone. Okay, cool. So let's try something else now. Let's get this rhythm. Okay, this is, again, to all intents and purposes. I only just learnt the other day that it's not intensive purposes. I thought I was quite good at English, but there's more you can learn every day. Sorry, these are so painful. Okay, so we're going to bring the gain down on here because that is way too loud. What have we got by default? Let's listen. It's a cool rhythm. Let's go straight in, put it to hard, short grain sizes, and preview at onsets. Sounds good. Let's see in context with the track. Quite cool. But this is a perfect example to show you something which you could do with even the same loop. using different modes. So I'm going to keep the kick in, and I'm going to drag the loop back in as it is. I'm going to bring it down to an acceptable volume level. And I'm going to copy this across 3 times. So we got 1, 2, and 3. For the sake of this, let's make it a different color. I wouldn't usually do that. Okay, so on number 1, we're going to set this to quarter notes. And what will quarter notes give us? But the kick and the clap. I'm going to make the long or the large grain size so that we get. I'm even going to mute the kick here. So this loop here will become. I mean, that's like 2 clicks to effectively create a kick and clap groove out of, anything that has quarter notes. You can just solo those quarter notes, and in a way that I don't think a gate does it quite so well. Anyways, I'm waffling. So we've done that. Now on this next one, let's change this to be 1/8 notes. So we'll go to slice onsets, and this time we'll do short, small grain sizes, and we'll do this to 1/8 notes, and see what this ends up with. Quite cool. I'm into it. Okay, let's mute that. Let's go to this guy. Now let's set this to 16th notes. But let's pitch this up 12. We're going to set this to short size, 16th, and we'll see what this sounds like. I forgot to even put the preview. Wait. Okay, sorry, I was on the wrong mode. I can't see. Okay, number 3. So we'll put preview onsets on, hard transient preservation, short grain size, and pitch it up 12. Quite cool. Why don't we pitch it up another 12 and see if that makes anything different? Sorry, it's still on onsets. I wanted that to be on 16th notes. Okay. Oh, see that, to me, that's close enough for jazz. Turn it off. I mean, that pitching up 12 on this stretch mode doesn't sound particularly good. But when you put those 16th note rate transient, grain size, preview, onset, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Let's try it up another 12. Okay, that's too much. We'll go back down to 12. So let's join these guys in. Also, I'm just going to bounce them all in place. Ooh. So we've got our kick and clap here. Therefore on this one we have our hat, so I can use the erase tool to get rid of the duplication. Get rid of those guys. Da 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 da. The joys of a nice cold wind on a hot day. Hope you can hear those birds in the background. Okay, so we've got the hat. The old kick and clap, and the pitched up loop. Let's see what they sound like together now. So let's listen to the original loop. Love it. Let's see what it sounds like, these 3 guys together. Now it's not too different, but in many ways I could call that my own. I could say that was all me, baby. Let's bring in some of these other patterns. Okay, I'm into that. Let's see if we bring in that hat pattern. Obviously you could do a lot of work on the EQing and the compression of these and tightening up pieces, but we have in many ways created quite organic, tight, microhousey rhythm with just only using one feature, the preview onsets button here. If you were to layer that with other sounds that you didn't use the preview onsets feature, you could create quite a nice combination of short and choppy and organic and loose. And another little thing I'm going to show you here now is these sounds, this rhythm. This has been preview onsetted on 16th notes. The original groove had a bit more swing to it. that has been basically eradicated by me picking it to be 16th notes. So one thing we could then do is, obviously this kick won't respond at all. Neither will this kick and clap, because they're eighth notes, quarter notes, sorry. This hat is just eighth notes. That won't respond to a 16th note swing, but these guys will. So we'll bring these over here. Let's make everything red again. Don't need to make the master red. Okay, so let's have a look here. I can't swing this clip by default. If I put on global groove control, doesn't matter if I put shuffle up all the way, even though I have shuffle on this clip, nothing happens. Why? It's so frustrating. What we've got to do is we've got to go in here and we've got to slice at the onsets. For some reason, however, we're not even seeing the onsets appear. So I'm just going to make the gain louder on this, because for some reason, if I then bounce this in place... Oh, you've done your bloody job, Bitwig. Almost. Half done your job. So I'm going to go in with the onsets mode, and I'm just going to add the points where the onsets start. And in some ways you can see that this is a bit swung. Cool, so that looks almost good enough for jazz. Add one there. Add one there. I see other video makers sometimes do a speed up section in this. Doesn't seem to need to take all of the moments of your day. Okay. Drag that there. And that there. And... oh, the dog is coming. Okay. Why don't we just split this in half? Save you some time. Okay, I'll cut that there. Get rid of that. Hello, doggy. Okay, so we're going to now click on the clip. I've got it set to Command P to slice in place, and I'm going to slice at onsets. What this is going to do is every time it's detected an onset, it's going to cut it into a separate piece. So from one piece into, you do the math, however many that is. Now, when I put groove control on, you'll notice that because these are all separate events, the onsets have been sliced into separate events. Now the groove will work. So let's bring groove all the way down, but leave it on. As I start to bring this up, it doesn't sound particularly good on stretch mode, so we could put it to Elastique Pro. Still not too good. Let's try Elastique. I mean, that'll do. That'll do. Let's go to the hat loop now. Let's see. Let's turn everything up a bunch. Bounce in place again. Nice. You've almost done your job again. Let's add some more onsets. The dog looks like it's seen a ghost. Okay, let's click the clip, Command P to slice in place, slice at onsets, and... oh, I forgot to turn these guys down. I did turn them up 12, so turn them down 12. I mean, that has just gone mad. I don't know what's happening there. Put too much shuffle, perhaps. I would go as far as to say that that sounds quite bad. Let's turn the global groove control off. How about we put these guys back to okay, that sounds a bit more my tempo. Anyways, that's quick little way that you can use what I'm not entirely sure is a feature for something to create tighter, more microhousey rhythms. Oh, one last thing. Let's see if we can bring in a bass line. Let's put all these guys in a group. We'll call that drums. And here we have a bass line. So the clip itself is alright. Cool. Optical techno, dude. Okay, so let's go in here, and by default, let's just go straight to slicer onsets, hard transient, short grain size. And what have we got? I mean, it already creates something, you know. It's got a quite a defined sound using this preview onsets thing. It is quite short and choppy, sometimes not in the way that you would like across every sound, but it definitely does create cool choppy sound. Why don't we try the rate at 16th notes? Let's see what happens there. I mean, it's definitely fit for Berghain. I doubt that 8th notes or quarter notes will be cool in any way. I mean, that's just... nah, not into that. Let's go back to onsets, and let's delete all of these onsets. Let's go to onsets mode, and let's just delete all of these guys. Let's make this loop a little bit shorter. Oh, what have I done? Okay, so let's make this 2 bars long, and we'll loop that. Okay, and let's get rid of these onsets. So now, for some reason, the beginning of a clip is always an onset. So we will get a burst of sound, but because there are no more onsets, we're not going to get any sound until the loop cycles around again. So let's try that out. So what we can do here is we can add our own onsets to define where we want that little burst of sound defined, the length defined by the grain size, to be. So what if we add one here, one here. This is the classic boom, 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 boom rhythm that, like, I always tend to do with the tom. I open up a new project file and it's always in there. So let's see what happens now then. Quite cool. What if we have one here as well? Let's mute the other drums just so we know that what we're doing is actually cool. Seems like my screen has got a lot smaller. Wait, let's just drag that up. Oh, yes, yes, yes. Okay, so let's mute all of this stuff. Just have the kick and the bass. So you can see quite quickly I've managed to take this loop and make something a bit more rhythmic out of it. And obviously I can add in as many transients as I want. It will take until it cycles again for you to hear them. Might start the loop there. What's also interesting to note is that if I change the grid size, and I have that set to command 3, I can add in triplets. So I could add in here some triplet notes. I could add in, let's see what this sounds like. Let's try longer triplets. Let's remove that guy and add this in and see what that's like. Oh, I mean that's quite cool. Let's remove that guy as well. Maybe just have one here. I mean that doesn't sound good, but I like what I did there. Let's go back to how that was. That sounded alright. So you can see how it's really quite easy to take source material and transform it quite quickly, quite easily. Let's just drag let's just type loop in here. Loop music. And just drag anyone in. I'm even going to turn this off just to make sure I don't hear it. I don't want to hear what I'm doing. I just want to I want to drag something in. Let's drag that guy in. Don't care what it is. It looks fit. Looks ripe for the picking though. Let's put this to onsets, hard, small grain size. Let's just see what happens. Turn it down a bit in volume. Oh, I mean, come on, that's fucking sick. Let's remove some of the low end from this hat. Do we want to hear what it sounded like before? Let's have a look. I mean, it's a cool loop, like, don't get me wrong, but this is mine now. We slapped a little bit of reverb on there. Let's add a couple more onsets as well. Maybe we can put a triplet in there. Are we still on triplet mode? Oh. See what happens when it goes around again. So I don't want triplets really. Let's take it off triplets. Oh. Again, let's listen to what we had. Very fucking cool. Okay, I mean, I think that pretty much sums up some of the things you can do with that little preview onsets button. And I hope you've learnt something, and I hope you've enjoyed vibing out with me in the garden today. And I don't want to let this get too long, so I think I'm going to leave it there. Go home, do your homework. Hope you're all staying safe. Hope you're having a lovely day. Hope it's sunny where you are, and if it's not, it will be tomorrow. I'm going to think about what I'm going to teach next. Farewell, and have a splendid Wednesday evening. Thank you.